Hello class. Today I'm going to show you some features that we're going to be using in Excel this week for the Excel Module 2 textbook project, as well as next week in the Module 2 project. These are the things that we're going to be focusing on: using flash fill, entering formulas using the keyboard, or using point mode, using some more functions, min, max, and average. You can verify, showing how to verify using the rangefinder, how to apply a theme, and how to apply some formatting changes to the cells. We'll also be looking at conditional formatting, how to change the column width and height, which we kind of know that already, how to do spell check on your worksheet, and then adjusting your spreadsheet for printing. So this is the textbook project in its final state for this week. I'm going to show you a partially completed one to show you how some of this stuff works. So the first thing we're going to look at is how to use flash fill. Flash fill allows you to take the stuff you've typed in a few of the cells and then cascade it down to other cells that have similar setups, so you can quickly fill out your spreadsheet. So here I have the same thing going all the way down because Michael Fred has the same email structure as Celine Emmanuel, has the same email structure as Teresa Khan. So to quickly do this, so I don't have to manually type this all the way down, I can just go into this cell, go into the data tab at the top of my window, and use this function called flash fill. Flash fill looks at what you've already put in, it looks at the cells around it and tries to determine what you want the next cells to be based on that information. So when I hit flash fill, it's going to go, okay, the next cell has Celine Emmanuel, and it's going to take the C in the Emmanuel and build out that email address for me, so I don't have to type the whole thing manually. It's really good if you've got a large spreadsheet that you are using the same formatting over and over again, and you need to quickly fill it out. Some disadvantages here, as you can see, is it sometimes goes beyond where it's supposed to. These are not email addresses I actually want to have added, because those aren't my employee names, so I'll delete those, as well as these ones up at the top of the screen. These weren't meant to be here, so I'll get rid of those. But you see that it did fill in all of the other email addresses that I needed it to fill in. Continuing on, to enter formulas using the keyboard. So this week you're going to be doing that min, max, and average functions. And so you need to be able to enter formulas in your spreadsheet. There's a lot of different ways to do this, just like there is with anything else in Excel. If I wanted to, for instance, just do a total on this, last week we would have used the AutoSum function, which is this. But you can also do things manually. Like if I wanted to just sum this whole column, I can put in the equal sign. And this is pretty important. Anytime you're typing a function into your spreadsheet, you have to start it with the equal sign. Otherwise, it's not going to be treated as a function by Excel. So for instance, if I just typed in sum of cell D4 through D11, for instance, it's just going to think I'm just typing text into the cell because I've not told it it's a function. So if I go back into the cell and I edit it and put in my equal sign, that's telling Excel that I'm actually trying to do some math. I'm trying to do a function. So once I do that, then it actually treats it like a function and uses the information I put into the cell. So everybody runs into it one point or another that you forget to put the equal sign in, and then you can't figure out why it's not working. That's why. It's because you're missing the equal sign. So that's one way you can add functions into a cell. And this is just some details that show you some of the different things that are involved in putting a formula in. You'll always see that you've got your formula bar at the top here, that when you type into the cell, it always shows up here at the top. You can also just directly type in at the top. You don't have to do it within the cell. You can, if you want to go into a cell and start creating a formula, you can also hit this function button, which instead of starting to type it manually, it just understands that yes, I want to do a function, it brings up this UI for you to user interface for you to build your functions out this way. So if I wanted to do a sum, I could click on this option, hit OK, and then it's going to give me a little bit of assistance with building out that function. So I can start putting in the list of cells that I actually want to do math on, because I'm doing a sum this time. I could do it like this. Or I could go into the next one and I can hit this arrow here. And this arrow will drop me back to my spreadsheet to make a selection. And then once I make the selection, I hit the little down arrow here and it brings me back in and has filled in that for me in that next number. Once I have all of the stuff filled in for my formula, I hit OK and it builds out my formula for me. So it's just another way to do the same thing. And I just showed you how to do that using the point mode, where you can start your formula with, again, an equal sign. And then you can actually start clicking. So I want you to have this cell in my formula, and then I can put a comma in, do this cell, put a comma in, do this cell, and then I could actually highlight a group of them, and then I can build it out that way. So using a combination of your mouse and your keyboard to build out your Excel, your formula. Okay, this is specific to the max function. So what the max does is you give it a series of inputs, and it's just going to tell you which number is biggest as the result of the formula. So if I want to do a max function, just like anything else, I could do it a number of ways, but I will start in this cell here, and in this case, I'll just type it in. So I'm going to do equals max, and you can see that as you start typing it in, it makes suggestions below. And then I start telling it what I want to use to determine what the max is. So I can highlight a series of cells that I want to check the max on. And then I hit enter, and it gives me the maximum number. If I wanted to do it a different way, I'll just go ahead and do the maximum on this cell. I can start with a formula. So I can hit this function here to get that user interface set up. And I want to do the maximum here. I could just click on maximum, but I wanted to show you this search option. Excel has a ton of formulas that you can use, and this helps you kind of try to find some of the less obvious ones that you might not know what they're called. So if I wanted to type in max and then hit go, it gives me a whole bunch of options, but that first one is the max, and it gives you a little bit of detail about what that function does. I know that's the one I want, so I click on that. And now it's giving me the opportunity to tell it which cells I want to try to include in my formula. So this time I'll go ahead and hit that arrow right away and say I want to do this whole group of cells here, and then hit OK, and then it builds up my formula for me and gives me the maximum number. And here's some more details similar to what I just showed you. Now we can do the same thing using the minimum function. So instead of maximum in this case, I'm trying to do the minimum, so that would be down here. And I could do it again a multitude of different ways, but I can do equals min. And you see as I start to type a formula, it also gives me this little drop down here. And if I see the one I want, I can double click on it, and then it pops it into the cell. And then I can choose my range of cells that I want to include, hit enter, and it gives me the minimum cell in that range. And this is again showing you very similar to what I just showed you. We can also do the average in the cells. So I want to do the average for this column. I can go ahead and do equals average. Again, you see that it allows me to double click to autofill it, and I can choose the numbers I want. This time, even though I don't have to, I'll just do each one individually. So I can just click the first one, and then always put a comma in between it and the next one that you need to choose. And I can build out I can click all the cells I could even do, I did the first 4 individually. I could highlight the rest as a group. And when you see when you do a multiple grouping of cells, you have a colon in between them, so it's saying between D8 and D12. And then now I have everything I need, and it gives me the average for that column. This is again showing you more of the same. Verifying what you've put in. I think I've kind of shown that here already, but once you complete your function and hit enter, you get the result, but you can actually double click and you'll see that it brings you back into edit mode, and it highlights all of the different cells that are involved in your formula. It allows you to make sure that you've got all the stuff that you actually want included in your formula correctly. It also color codes, which is sometimes helpful. So you can see the D4 has kind of got that blue border around it. D5 has got that red border around it. So you can tell which cells it's referring to. Now we're going to do a little bit of formatting on the worksheet. So you can change the actual theme of the entire workbook. Sometimes this is useful if you like to make it look a little bit different than Excel default. So if I'm over on my spreadsheet, I can go to page layout, and then I've got themes here. And when you can hover over these and you can kind of get an idea of what the themes look like. It changes the font, changes the cell sizes, things like that. You just find one that you like, and then you click on it, and then your entire spreadsheet is formatted to that theme. You can change cell backgrounds and apply borders to the cells. These things can become useful, especially if you have a larger spreadsheet. So if I wanted to take my header, my title, and my subtitle here, and I wanted to change the background color, there's this one that looks like a bucket of paint called fill color. I can choose a color that I want to put in the background. Let's say I want to make this yellow. It helps it stand out. So you can see it quickly when you're looking at your spreadsheet. I can also apply borders, and you can do a lot of different things with borders. This is borders right here. You hit the down arrow on the right side of it, and you can do a ton of different borders for it. So if I wanted to do outside border, you can do this one, and then it's hard to see there because it's in the corner. Let me do it here. I can do outside border, and you see it puts lines around the outside of it. All of your cells can be formatted into different types of numbers or dates or text. In this case, we're showing you how to format for date and centering the data in the cells. So I've got this hire date over here, and I want to change the way that date function works. So I can go here into the drop down, and you see that there's a lot of different formatting options. And if I want to, let's say I wanted to have a long date instead of a short date, I could choose long date, and you get those hashes when the stuff doesn't fit in the cell. So if I extend the cell, you see that it types it out in a long format. And I can also just quickly change that back to short date to get back where I was before. And you can also do a lot more custom date formats in this case. So here I've already chosen it to be a type of date, but there's a bunch of different options here you can do for how you want that date to look, including date time. Maybe I just want the 2 position year instead of the 4 position year. I can choose that and hit OK, and it drops it down to a 2 position year instead of the longer 4 position year. Can do a similar thing to apply a counting number format and including commas in longer numbers. So I've got this gross pay column here, for instance, and the numbers are kind of big, and it's not obvious that it's monetary. So I can just go ahead and come up here, and I've got the $sign here, and I can choose counting number format, and you see that it formats it with the $signs that's a shortcut for it. You can do the same thing by going to this drop down and choosing accounting. Just like everything else, the accounting, when you go to the bigger menu here, you can do some different things. If you're, I don't know, in a different country, you could change the dollar sign to their appropriate currency symbol. You can increase or decrease the number of decimal places. But yeah, it allows you to format things in the way that you like. You can also apply percent style formatting and adjust the amount of numbers behind the decimal place. So in this spreadsheet, this is tax percentage, but you can see it's just a number right now, and that doesn't look very good, and it doesn't fit because it's a percentage. So I'm going to highlight all of these, and I'm going to choose the percent style. And you see that it takes it to just whole number percentages, but I'd like a little more precision. So in this case, I've got two options here. I've got the increase or the decrease decimals. The increase is what I want here because I want it to show me more details. So if I hit that a couple of times, you see that it includes more items behind the decimal point. You can do that, you know, to be crazy. You can keep going forever, but in this case, I just want the 2 decimal places. Conditional formatting is something that can be really useful because it allows you to give it a criteria or multiple criteria and do something with the cell visually based on that. So it helps you find outliers or interesting pieces of data within your spreadsheet. So if I want to see, for instance, I've got this group here and I want to know who's worked more than 70 hours in this pay period, I can go to the Data tab and I can choose conditional formatting. Sorry, I meant to go to the Home tab and choose conditional formatting after I've highlighted my cells. And then I choose the greater than, and I can say I want to know everybody that's worked greater than 60 hours. And I can highlight them in, I don't know, green fill with dark border, and then I hit OK, and you see that it highlights those cells for me. The nice thing about this is that it keeps that live. So if I had decided that I made an error on Faye Otterman here, and she actually only worked 50 hours, you'll see that it updates and it takes away the green because she no longer fits the conditional formatting. Here are some of the things you can do with conditional formatting. You can do things that are between, not between, equal to, not equal to, greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, or less than or equal to. We've done this previous week, but I'll go ahead and show you again, changing column width. As you get close to completing your spreadsheet, maybe the columns aren't the right width. You can highlight the columns that you want to adjust, and then you just put your cursor here so it turns into the left and right arrow. You double click, and then it formats all of those cells to be the right width. In this case, I don't think it's really necessary, but you could do highlight rows, and you can do the same thing. So you can double click on the rows, and it'll adjust the height of those to be appropriate as well. Excel offers you the ability to go ahead and check the spelling on your spreadsheet. This is something you definitely want to do, especially if you're in a work environment. You don't want to have typos, and this allows you to catch them. One of the things that you do need to be careful about is that the way the spell check works is it starts from whatever cell you're in, and then it continues down through the spreadsheet from there. So if your pointer is in a cell near the end of your spreadsheet, it doesn't necessarily check the entire spreadsheet. So what you'll do to check your spelling is you want to start in cell A1 because that's the beginning of your spreadsheet. And then you'll go over to review, and then you've got your spelling check here. So you can click that, and then it will bring up a window and start telling you the things that it thinks you may have spelled wrong. So you can, this is just like any Office suite. You know, it's going to find things that you don't necessarily have spelled wrong, like names. So you can just hit ignore, didn't find any other errors, so I don't have to correct anything. But if I had to type in, I don't know, funny spelled wrong, and then I start at cell A1, check my spelling, it's going to find that and say that's not spelled right. It's going to offer me some options, and I can say change, because I like the change that it suggested in this case, and it'll automatically update it for me. So now I don't have those typos in my spreadsheet. It can be very useful to do prior to submitting your work. Okay, so now printing. So now that you've completed setting up your spreadsheet, you want to go ahead and get it ready, perhaps for printing if you needed to make physical copies for a meeting or whatever. So you'll want to go over to your spreadsheet, and you're going to want to change it from edit mode, which is the mode we've been working at. Down here on your status bar, you can change it to page layout mode, which gives you a more page view of what it would look like if you were to print the document, or the spreadsheet. So if I wanted to make some adjustments to this, because I see right now it's in portrait mode, I can go to the page layout tab and I can change my orientation from portrait to landscape, and then I'll get a wider page when I go to print it, so I can get more columns in. From this view, you can adjust the margins. If you want to be able to get more on the page when you go to print, you can change to narrow margins, and you'll see that it gets closer to the edges of the page, gets it looking a little bit nicer for printing. And then when you're ready to actually print, go ahead and highlight what you want to print, because otherwise it's not necessarily going to print the right stuff. Maybe you only want to print the first few cells, and maybe this is all you wanted to print, but otherwise you want to make sure you get everything. When you go to print, you go to File, you choose Print, and then you get your printer options, and it shows you a preview, and you can do a lot of different stuff here, just like you can in any Windows printing function. You can print just the active sheets, you can choose where you want to print it to, and you can adjust your scaling, and this is pretty important in Excel, because otherwise sometimes you get stuff that doesn't quite get into your printout. You can fit it to a page, so then it'll shrink it down. I have active cells outside, so I don't want to necessarily do that. But you can adjust the scaling so you get the right size. And then once you go ahead and do that, get everything the way you want it, you just hit print, and then you're all done. This is kind of a cool thing that you can do, displaying your formulas. So going back over to my spreadsheet, I'm going to go back to normal mode, go back to just normal editing mode. If I hold down my control key and then hit my accent key, which is way up on the upper left corner of the keyboard, you can see that instead of actually showing me the data, it actually shows the formulas. So this way I can look and see all the formulas that I've got in my spreadsheet, so I can make sure everything is as I expect it to be. I can also print this too in this mode, so that if I wanted to have a hard copy of what all my formulas look like in my spreadsheet, I could have that. And to get out of that mode, you just again hit the control accent key, and then it brings you back to normal mode. And that's all I have for today. Hopefully that gets you guys started on the next project and gives you a little bit of a leg up on getting all this stuff functioning. As always, if you have any questions, please feel free to let me know, and I'll see what I can do to help. Thanks.